There we go.
All right. So we're going to be talking about the angels. And we are here with Eileen Rouse, and you may know her from Eileen into Spirit. And then, of course, our wonderful Bridget as well.
Yes. Hello.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
Me too. I am thrilled that you agreed to come on with us because I would love to know all about angels, which I'm sure our viewers would as well.
Yeah. I've got all the goods. I'm ready to do
So first, tell us a little bit, for those of you who don't know you, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got connected with the angels.
Okay. So I'm a psychic intuitive and a spiritual essence coach. I've been doing intuitive psychic readings for over 15 years. The angels have always been a part of my life. So you will find that not everyone, very few people will actually tell you that they've had angels with them since they were young. It's crazy. When I was young, I just thought they were my imaginary friends. I didn't really know that they were angels. And I grew up in a very religious home. We grew up in Catholicism. And then when I was about 10 and a half, 11, my mom converted us to Southern Baptist. And so talking about angels and, psychic intuitive stuff was just not something that was ever brought up or discussed. And so I will tell you that growing up, when the angels were very present and very, very relevant and a part of my life and always guided me into, do this or do that, or this is what this means. When I was a lot younger, I was very open to it. But I want to say probably at around the time that I turned around 8 or 9 was when I really started to think, this is bad. Like, I can't talk to anyone about this. And so I really tried to walk away from it and shun it. And it wasn't until I was 15 that I ended up having a very vivid dream one night when Archangel Michael actually revealed himself to me. And I remember in this dream, I was in this beautiful, luscious garden. And while I was there in this garden, Archangel Michael appeared and he told me who he was. And he basically told me, he said, your gift is meant to be shared with the world. And I know that you find it very frightening. And I know that you're kind of afraid of it, but you need to embrace it. And so what's interesting and how I knew who he was because every night when I would go to sleep, I would see this dark shadow that would stand at the foot of my bed, and it would terrify me. It would literally terrify me. And that night when he came to me in my dream, he told me, he said, I'm the one that stands at the foot of your bed. And I was like, why don't you reveal yourself to me? Like, why don't you reveal, because I see a dark shadow. And his response was, you're not ready. And so I was like, okay. So I just left it at that. So how I got to where I am is because I will honestly tell you, I ran from this as hard as someone could. And I started embracing it a little bit when I was probably around 19 years old, when I had my first traumatic experience in life, where I really had to really evaluate my religious beliefs and really figure out, what do I really feel? What do I really believe? Is this really what I believe? Or do I believe something else? And so that sort of sent me on my own spiritual quest, I guess you could say. And then that's sort of where it started. And then in 2019 was really when it picked up, when I was hit with my dark night of the soul experience, and my whole life as I knew it completely fell apart. And it was like I had to sort of just pick up the pieces and run with it. And so now here I am. So that's kind of how it got started. There's a lot more detail in there that I kind of just skimmed over, but we can get into that later.
Great. Okay. So what does a session with you look like when you're working with angels and with clients?
So I have this one service that I offer. It's called an angel therapy session. So in the angel therapy session, what it is I utilize tarot cards to really help me figure out what's going on in your energy field, what's really going on in your chakras. Whenever I do any kind of psychic intuitive reading or even coaching, I'm always bringing in the angels, the archangels, the ascended masters. I'm even bringing in the other people's angels, because what it particularly looks like is a lot of information comes through. So like if I've never seen you before, like if you're a brand new client for me, there's usually so much information that comes through. I usually have to filter through what do they need to know for their highest good right now, because I could literally go through like a whole line of, of all the little things that they're like, because when that usually happens, what happens is they're like, oh my God, someone who understands me. And so then they start filtering like all of this information. And I'm like, okay, one at a time. I can only like, what do they need to know for their highest good? So it's always about, for me, it's about the intention. And so in this actual healing therapy session, what I do is I figure out where is the area that they are struggling the most. And that always comes up right at the top. And so I use a lot of sound therapy. I will use a lot of light crystal therapy in that type of session. And I'll also deliver messages. Whatever comes through is what comes through. And it's different for everyone because not everyone is going through the same thing. And so sometimes it varies. And so it's interesting because I think one of the biggest things that people want to know is, do I have any angels, right? And what most people don't know is that we all come into this life with 2 angels, at the minimum 2. So you have a life angel that is pretty much with you throughout your entire life. And it's often that angel's voice, right? You'll hear it in your voice, in your head. It'll come across as your voice, right? Like if you've ever been doing something and you could almost swear that you heard someone call your name.
Yes.
More than likely, that's your angel, right? That's your life angel. The other angel is your safety angel. And that angel, you will never really communicate with, because that angel is only there to save you when it's not your time to go. So it's there to prevent certain things from happening when it's not your time. There are some people that I've seen that have, 3 angels. And so, like I said, for every person, it's different. At the minimum, everyone comes in with 2. And a lot of times they don't realize that. So your angel is really there to help keep you on your path, to help steer you focused on your path. And the way that you know that you're on the right path is if you often have deja vu. If you have deja vu, then that's your angel's way of letting you know you're on the right path. You're exactly where you need to be.
Great. I did not know that we had 2 angels.
Well,
I mean,
that's
through, yeah. So that's great.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's the whole point of this is learning all this, and
Yeah.
I guess, does it seem to you, I'm sure you've met other people who have worked with angels before, does it seem
Yes.
to you that it's almost like they have to have that traumatic kind of thing to move into place, or is that common, would you say?
The one thing I will definitely say is that we all experience some sort of trauma in our life. A lot of us are probably just not aware that we even had anything traumatic. Working with the angels, and this, I can literally hear them. They're like, yes, say it, say it, say it. The one thing that they want to really point out is that they cannot impede on your free will.
Mm-hmm.
You have to invite them in. You have to ask them for their help. And that's the whole reason why those of us that do communicate with the angels, with the angelic realm, say it all the time, invite them in. They're not going to impede on your own free will. They'll see you there struggling. But if you're not saying, hey, I need you to help me, they're not going to do it, because that you have to really sort of invite them in to assist in any area. I've met a couple of people who really have the angelic realm with them, like especially like archangels, that really want to work with people, but they're not ready. And so when they're not ready, I usually, like, if I know that they're there, in my mind, I'm just telling them they're not ready. Like, I can't like force it upon people. They have to be, realistically speaking, they have to be at that vibrational level. If they're not at the vibrational level, then they're going to completely miss all of the signs and the synchronicities and all of the way that those angels would particularly communicate with them. So I feel that you don't always have to have traumatic experiences for that to happen. But I mean, if you really, from what I've been told and what I've been shown, we all have traumatic experiences in our life, and how we actually, I feel like what we particularly learn from those experiences and how it sort of helps us open up our consciousness and awareness into what it really truly represented in our life determines, whether you're at that level to, bring them in. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So if I needed help with a particular situation in my life, would I have to call on the correct angel, or can I just say, hey, yo, I need some help here?
Yeah. When I first started, so I ended up meeting a specific mentor. She was known as the Angel Lady. That's how I knew her. She was known as the Angel Lady, and she became my mentor. And I remember when I first met with her, when she told me, she's like, "You have so many angels around you," and I told her, I said, "I'm very well aware." But I need to know, like, I need you to teach me how to like properly communicate. Like, so what I started doing, okay, was, you're not going to automatically know the names of every single angel until you actually start doing your research, right? Because there's a bunch of them. There are so many, and there's actually several different levels of angels. And so what I would do is, like, let's say, and this is how I started incorporating it. Let's say I was going to go somewhere, like go to the mall. Okay. And you know that parking at the mall is like, trying to find a parking space is like, sometimes can be so draining, right?
Yeah.
And so what I would do is, early in the morning, I would say, okay, parking angels, I need y'all to find me the perfect parking spot that's going to get me closest to my destination, right? So I would just label whatever it is I need. I would just say that angels, right? And so they will literally send whoever can help with that, they'll send it. They're not very particular. You don't have to call them by name. They want to help and are willing to just jump right in and help. All you have to do is just say, hey, I need help with this, and be open to receiving what comes through.
Great. You said that there are many different levels. Can you tell us a little bit about those levels?
Yes. So there are 9 different levels, I believe. Yeah, 9 different levels. So the only ones that humanity really communicates with are the 2 lower levels, right?
Oh, wow.
2 lower levels. So it is the angels, which is just regular angels, and then it's the archangels, right? All of the other levels are, we will never really, they'll never communicate with humanity, because they're more along the lines of working primarily like on divine order, right? So like, or they're working on divine grace or divine love. And so the higher ups, so you have thrones, you have principalities, and then you have the seraphims, which is the highest order of angel. And that seraphims are actually the ones that are the closest to God's source. So I found it very interesting that when Metatron came to me and asked me to actually put together a chakra workshop, I'll be very honest. Metatron and I have this kind of dialogue that it's kind of like, it's a love-hate relationship. Because Metatron is a very strong energy, very domineering energy. It's more like it's a no budge. You do as I say, and that's it kind of an energy. And so I remember when Metatron came in and he was like, okay, you're going to do a chakra workshop. I'm like, no, I'm not. And he's like, yes, you are. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And he's like, yes, you are. And then he like, poof, like he's gone. And I'm like, oh, right. So the next evening, I'm like sleeping peacefully. 3:30 comes around and all of a sudden I get hit with this massive download and I'm like up and I'm like scribbling like all this stuff. And the only thing I remembered was transcendental transcendence. And I couldn't go back to sleep. I was just so wired. And so probably at around 7 o'clock that morning, I was like, what the hell is this word? So I started like looking it up, and then it was just like floodgates. Like all this stuff started coming through for the chakra. And I literally remember putting it all together and then going, this is not chakra stuff. This is like higher stuff. Like people that are just waking up aren't going to know what this stuff is. And he's like, just go with it. And I'm like, okay. So, so see, now I just forgot what the question you asked me. What did you ask me? I'm sorry.
The levels.
The levels, but
levels, yes.
Yeah. But you mentioned downloads.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about what downloads are? Because our viewers may not necessarily know what they are and how it came to you and what it felt like.
Okay. So everyone will experience a download very differently. Downloads are just like these massive. So the way that I experience my downloads is in two different ways. One, I could be in the middle of a conversation and I go, my eyes will just completely glaze over and I just stop talking mid-sentence, right? And my wife has grown very accustomed to that, so that when she sees it, my eyes, and then I get dizzy. I get very dizzy, and then when I blink my eyes, she'll look at me and she'll say, "Are you okay?" And I just said, "They just downloaded something that apparently I need for later," right? Or I'll get a very like loud, popping, ringing sound in my right ear, and usually when that happens, it can kind of feel like this tingling sensation that happens right up here at my crown chakra. And I'm like, okay, so we have an incoming, right? And so it's just, and I usually just feel like the tingling sensation, and then it just like poof, right? It'll just like go away. So you'll either experience it as what most people would say, like sort of like brain fog, right? Like you'll be like, wait, what was I just saying? Just like a few minutes ago, right? Because I'm also a channeler. And so a lot of times they just pop in when I'm in the middle of doing something and then just will spit something out. So a lot of times you'll feel it that way, or you'll feel it in your ear, like a ringing in your ear. Believe it or not, when you sleep is when they tend to do a lot of more downloads for people, where you'll just wake up and you'll be like, I don't know how I know this information, but I just know this information, right? And that's because it's using your claircognizance, which is one of the 4 clairs. So that's sort of how a download would work, but it's different for everyone.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So what is the difference that you find between angels and other types of spirit guides?
Okay, so angels have actually never lived a human life before. So with the exception, so this is where this is going to differ, okay? Because Metatron is considered an angel, but he's actually an ascended master. And most people don't know that because Metatron has lived a human life. So angels have never lived a human life. They are literally a light being created by divine source energy for a specific purpose. And the angel's specific purpose is for humanity. It is to keep divine order in alignment with divine source. A guide can be a deceased loved one that you've had. It can be an ascended master, like someone who has actually lived a human life, but has transcended into a higher form of consciousness. And so they're considered ascended masters because they've ascended to that particular level. Most ascended masters are usually roaming around in the 7th to 12th dimension of light frequency. So they have like that pure divine source energy. So we also come into our lives with guides, particular life guides. So I have 2 life guides that I'm actually aware of. One of them is an older woman. Her name is Lynn. And I don't really communicate with her very much because she knows that the angels are really the primary focus of what I'm here to do. So a lot of times when I'm quiet in meditation, I'll see her and she just smiles and I just smile back at her. And that's usually about it. But a lot of other people will have guides that will actually communicate with them and talk with them. But, you know, I think a lot of times people feel like, well, do they get jealous? Or, you know, if I call on one over the other? And the answer to that is no, you know, because their purpose is to help you fulfill your purpose. And no matter how you do it, we're all a part of the same source. So there's no judgment or no competition between who you're calling upon. So
is one better at certain things than the other in helping you out?
For me, because if you were ever to come to my home, you would feel the energetic difference. This is what I call Angel Grand Central Station. So I very rarely, so when I do my invocations every single day, I call in everyone. So I always say angels, guides, archangels, ascended masters. I call in everyone that I currently work with. And that's probably a good practice to do until people become accustomed to it. I think for me, I primarily tend to really rely on angels because that's just kind of, they've always been there and it's kind of always something I've relied on. And so I've never really utilized anything else. But for other people, it might be different. A lot of people will actually say, well, guides before they say angels. And that's just because that's what they personally resonate with. So I want to say that whatever you feel most comfortable with, that is what you should rely on. That's what you should do, because it's mostly what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, me, myself, I'm more comfortable not in the body. So that would explain why the angels are you know, like I said earlier, calling me to work with them. So do you find that you work more in your upper chakras than your lower chakras?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I am so this is interesting. My wife and I joke about this. I joke that we're total opposites. Like she and I are total opposites. We literally are. She loves the cold. I love the heat. And it's like literal opposites. But with what she currently works on, it's interesting because when she first told me this is what she wanted to do, I freaked out a little bit. I really did. Because I remember having a conversation with Archangel Michael and Metatron, and I was like, I do not want anything coming in that I'm not comfortable with. I'm gonna start putting up my wards. And I was very literal. And they were like, calm down. They were like, she works with the dark and you work with the light. And that is how you guys make the perfect unit. And I was like, okay, wait. And I had to stop and think about that for a minute. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes total sense. Because so one thing that I don't really share with a lot of people is that I have always been drawn to unicorns my whole life. Okay. And it wasn't until probably last year when I really discovered why that was. I was in the middle of a meditation when I got this like massive download of where my love for unicorns came from. And, you know, unicorn energy is like 7th to 9th dimensional energy. It's very high frequency energy. And it's like pure consciousness energy. And I remember I grew up in like, I was born in 77. So I grew up when Rainbow Bright was like the big thing, right? And so I remember like I had this, and this is big for me because I had a very traumatic childhood where my memories between the ages of 5 to 10 are gone. Like I don't have very many memories. But I had this one, like I remembered this one of like sitting down, watching Rainbow Bright and being like, I know that those exist. I know those exist, you know? And it was like, and it was interesting because I ended up having in this massive download and in this meditation, an actual light being, an ET that came through and said, we are here to remind you of your mission again, right? And so they kind of gave me a glimpse of what they had told me when I was a lot younger that I completely forgot about because of the trauma, that I had a particular mission, and this was why the unicorn energy was so prevalent and strong with me. Like even now, I'm like 44 years old, and anytime I walk by anything unicorn, I'm like, oh my God, I want it, you know? You know? But it's because it keeps me on that high vibrational energy. So yeah, I mean, I would say that the angels are very much in that higher frequency than most. And because that's where I'm comfortable. You know, it's strange because when I meet new people, a lot of times people get very intimidated by me because of all the knowledge that I have and because my light energy is so big. But I'm like, I'm just as goofy as you could possibly imagine. I freaking love to color. I love playing with Play-Doh. I'm like the biggest kid, literally the biggest kid. But, you know, and I've found that to be one of the things that I've had to sort of learn to sort of come to terms with, you know, when I meet other people that are doing the same thing that I'm doing, and they're like, you know, they're like, oh, it was very nice to meet you, but, and I always know what's coming after that but, and I feel a lot of times it's because they feel that I might outshine them or I might know more than them, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not here to run on anyone's parade. So yeah, so it's interesting because she works a lot more with dragons than
I love the dragon.
and dragons are very like, they're the ones that filter through all the dark stuff, all the hard stuff, right? And I'm more of the light. I want to clear it, cleanse it, raise your vibrational frequency and get you going again. So yeah.
What a lovely pairing that the universe.
I know.
Sounds like you're talking about wine.
It kind of is, because they go together hand in hand.
They do. Nice wine and nice cheese, you know.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, Dana to me was always like one of those, like if you didn't know her well, you would think that she was almost like standoffish or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dana tends to be really shy. She just
Yeah.
tends to be very shy, and she's very analytical. So
Yes.
she's very analytical and she is very quick, straight to the point. I'm the talker. I'm the storyteller. So she's like, do I have to tell my whole story? I'm like, yes, you have to tell your whole story.
Yeah, we're watching some of that video. And you're like, introduce my wife, and I'm Dana, and you're like,
And
Keep going.
it's like they should already know. It doesn't matter if they don't. But yeah, it's just, yeah, you guys are so awesome because like it's like you on the I'm not really one of the people who ever felt really intimidated by you. I always thought you were like really enjoyable to be around. And so like you're on the outside a lot more. To me, you were always a lot more outgoing and friendly or whatever, but I know that when you have something that's really important to you, like you can go hard if you need to.
Oh yeah.
And then like Dana to me was like the opposite, like on the outside she seems like, but like I can tell she's a goofball on the inside somewhere,
Oh yeah, totally. Like my nieces, like our nieces and nephews, they're like, we want to tell Tia Dana. We don't want to tell you. You might lecture us. And I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's cool though, because like I said, and like Bridget was saying, you guys, it just balances that out. So that it allows you to do your work, and then what you're doing allows her to do her work, which is just amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, quite a force.
yeah, definitely.
Here, look at it. Look over here.
Yeah, I'm looking at at my notes here. So can you talk about specific angels that you work with? I mean, sure. Michael, we all know about Michael, I think, but
well, I mean, some people may not.
Some people may not. Yes, yes.
And you've spoken a little bit about Metatron, and that he is actually an assisted master, which maybe that's why I sometimes don't see him with that little collection of the angels. He's not always with there, I guess. So maybe a little bit about the I guess it'd be more like the archangels. I think you said the earth angels when I was talking to you earlier.
Yeah, so there are 4 great archangels that are on planet Earth. So they primarily work with humanity. And those are Archangel Michael, who is the protector. And then you have Archangel Gabriel, which is the so this is what's interesting, is that angels do not have a sex, okay? And they're very androgynous, okay? But their energy comes across as either feminine or masculine, depending on who they're communicating with. And what's interesting is that Archangel Gabriel, when Archangel Gabriel first came to me, it came to me across as a feminine energy, as Gabrielle.
That's what she was just, this is crazy.
I was just saying that.
That's crazy. We're just going over it.
It came across as Gabrielle.
I looked on the internet, I looked in books. I'm like, who is this Gabriella? Or Gabriel? No, she said Gabriella. Yeah.
Gabriella.
Yeah.
Gabrielle.
And I'm like, who is this? And for the life of me, I couldn't figure it out. And someone said it's Gabriel. I said, well, Gabriel's a masculine.
Well, this is how I figured it out, right? So because I remember saying, yeah, it was Gabrielle, Archangel Gabrielle. And my wife looked at me and she was like, you mean Archangel Gabriel? And I'm like, no, Archangel Gabrielle. And she was like, she goes, I think we're talking about the same one, but it comes across to me as masculine. And I was like, okay. So I had to ask. I was like, do y'all switch genders? I had to ask. And they were like, no, we're androgynous, but our energy comes across different to people that we work with, right? And for the life of me, I could not figure out why Archangel Gabriel came across to me as feminine in the beginning. But then I realized that Archangel Gabriel is the archangel of communication, vision, and guidance, right? Okay, so in all my years of growing and ascending, I realized that I had a lot of issues when it came to masculine energy. So I really had to learn how to balance out my masculine and really raise my feminine energy. Okay. So for the life of me, but see now when Archangel Gabriel comes across, it's masculine to me. It's not feminine anymore. So it switched, but that was because it was how I was perceiving things, and it's where I was vibrationally at the time. So then you have Raphael, which is healing, right? So Archangel Raphael. Now, Raphael it's a lot of times people are like, well, why do we need something for healing? Well, we have health, right? But also coincides with Mother Gaia, Mother Earth, because you need Gaia, you need that energy in order to help us heal energetically, right? Because Gaia has all of the energy in the crystalline grid to help our own vibrational frequencies sort of come into alignment as we ascend, right? And then you have Archangel Uriel. So Uriel is the archangel of giving and receiving. And so how I associate them is whenever I do my invocations, I always bring in the 4. And because in my day, I'm always going to need power and strength and protection, right? Uriel, because Uriel is going to help me not only give to receive, but also know that I'm supported and that I'm provided for. Gabriel, because I need proper communication, not only with others, but with myself, right? And then I bring in Archangel, who did I say? Raphael, right? For healing and the balance of Mother Gaia. The other ones that I work with is Archangel Shamuel. So Shamuel is the angel of, I guess you could say, relationships, but I really look at it as a harmony of relationships. And love. I look at it as love, because we all have to learn how to balance out our relationships. And we all have different types of relationships that are either out of balance or are non-existent altogether, right? Archangel Jophiel. I use Jophiel. Oh, poor thing. I probably called on her so often. Archangel Jophiel is the angel of beauty. And back in the day when I was really struggling with, so I had a lot of these thoughts of like dying prematurely. And I think a lot of it had to do with the anxiety and the fear that I was currently going through, because I was going through so much trauma healing at that time that I would constantly have these thoughts. And so whenever I had these thoughts that I'm like, stop it, stop it, stop it, I would just say, Archangel Jophiel, beautify my thoughts. Whenever
Wonderful.
Yeah, whenever I was thinking of something that I knew was not good, because remember, we're creators. We create our own reality with our thoughts. And so what most people don't realize is that, the more that you continue on that train, the more that we become addicted to that sensation and to that feeling, right? So I would just say, beautify my thoughts, and like magic, my thoughts would just start changing to something else. And so I utilize it all the time. But Jophiel is really the one angel that helps you see the beauty in everything, because there is beauty in everything. We just have to be open to seeing it.
Yeah.
And then, let me see. Yeah, so those are the ones that I primarily call upon. Then you have Archangel Zekiel. Now, Archangel Zekiel came into my life probably around the same time that Metatron came into my life. And I'll tell you the story of how I met Metatron, because it scared the crap out of me. So I was in my kitchen and I was cooking dinner. I was chopping vegetables. I was literally at my, what did you call my island, and I was chopping vegetables. And I'm used to having energy come in and out of my home all the time because of the angels. And so I was, and I felt something come in, and the hairs on the back of my neck just stood up. And I was mid chop and I stopped. My knife was like this, and I felt something behind me. And I could literally, like, the hairs on my back of my neck just stood up. And I said, whoever you are, get out from behind me and move in front of me. And I felt it shift, like it just moved like right in front of me. And the moment that happened, I felt Michael step in. And I just heard, be calm. It's okay. And I was just like, and I said, who is it? Like, I was
An angel here.
I just didn't know what to, like, I wasn't expecting anything, you know? And he said, Michael said, it is Metatron. But I couldn't see him at the time. I couldn't see, you know, what he looked like or anything. And I said, why is he here? And then all I heard was, I didn't hear Michael. This was a different voice. I just heard, I'm here and I'm watching. And then he was gone. And I was like, what? I was like, okay. And so that was it. That was probably, I didn't hear from him. I didn't feel him. And then in 2017, he popped in again, but he never said anything. He never said anything. I felt his energy. It felt the same, but he never said anything. He just stood there, and I'm like, are you watching? Like, I mean,
Come on, creeper.
And then in 2019, I was sitting on my couch, and I had just gone through probably one of the most traumatic experiences of my life, when I started having a lot of repressed memories coming back that sort of put me down in the road of needing to seek therapy. And so I was sitting on my couch. I was just doing what I would normally do on any given night. And he popped up and he said, your time of rest is over. It's time for you to get busy. The collective needs you. And I just kind of stopped, and I was like, oh my God, he spoke. And I was like, you know, I was like, I go, what do you mean? And he said, you will see. Just, you will see. He was very direct, very cut and dry, very direct to the point. Then the next day, I literally was sitting at my desk. I was doing some work, and he said, go live. I'm like, what? Go live where? And he was like, go live. And I'm like, okay. So I was like, okay, well, we're going to go live on Facebook and draw cards. Like, what am I supposed to do? You know? So I did. I went live, and a lot of people were very much into it, and they were like, you know, I want a card and all this stuff. And so then 2 weeks later, he was like, start a YouTube channel. Like, we're not starting a YouTube channel. You're crazy.
He's
like, start a YouTube channel.
Huh?
Yes, very bossy, very direct.
The CEO.
Yeah. And so he was the one that really pushed me. Is like, you know, you need to start blogging. You need to do a podcast. You need to, like, so this is how he started getting me moving, and how Eileen into Spirit sort of came into being, and how things just sort of took off from there. Next thing you know, in 2020, I'm leaving my corporate job and doing this full time, because he's like, this is where you need to be. And so I'm like, okay. So, but he's now, the interesting thing about Metatron is that when Metatron comes, now I didn't know this until I channeled him, like literally channeled him. And when he came through, it was the weirdest thing for me, because I didn't even know I could do that, to be honest. And it just happened one day, where I would hear it in my voice, like, I mean, in my head. Like, when I would sit down and meditate and ask a question, I would hear their voice in my head. And then I would open my eyes and write down whatever they said, right? That's just how I did it. My wife had some particular questions she wanted answered. And I said, well, if it works for me, maybe it'll work for her, right? So I said, well, let's do that. Why don't I just go into a meditation, and then you ask whatever questions, and then whatever comes out, right? And she was like, okay. So we did that. It was perfectly fine, right? Like, she felt it was pretty genuine. And I went to go visit a friend in Dallas, and we were there for the weekend. And she was like, hey, like, do that for me. Like, I have some questions. And I was like, okay. The difference was that not only did I bring him forward, but he came in his own voice. It was a different voice that came out of me. And I was so cold afterward. And I continued to do it, like practice and do it and ask questions and stuff. And it was at that time that I realized that the voice that was coming through for Metatron. So like when you call on Archangel Metatron, what people need to understand is that Metatron is a collective. He is a collective of entities. And I personally feel that Metatron, when he comes across that way, it's you're working with like the ascended masters as a collective. So I didn't realize that. And so it wasn't until I started channeling, like when I channeled Archangel Michael, or I channeled Archangel Raphael, or the angels of love, their energies feel so different when it's in my body, because my body would naturally respond in different ways. So when I channel the angels of love, I tend to get very hot. When I channel Archangel Metatron, I'm very cold. And it's like you can feel the disconnect. It's very interesting and weird all at the same time, but that's how I usually know when who is who. So yeah, Metatron it's a collective, and it's a collective of the ascended masters.
So when you are communicating with the angels, do you have, how do they show up for you? Is it a color? Is it a vision? Is it a form right in front of your eyes?
So in the beginning, for me, it was just sort of like a shadow. Okay. And one thing that when you start calling in angels, the one thing people need to understand is that they will never reveal themselves to you, because they don't want to scare you. Because most people have this belief that angels look like the way that we depict them. And that is not how they look. That is not how they look at all. In fact, and this is the reason why, like the archangels have very much the resemblance of like human form, right? So Archangel Michael, I'm going to use Michael as an example because I've worked with him the longest. When he came to me in my dream, he came to me with blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay. But realistically speaking, Archangel Michael does not have blonde hair and blue eyes. He has black hair, and it's very much like a very shadowy. They tend to be more along the dark realm, which is why they will never reveal what they truly look like. And that's why he told me, you're not ready, right? So now for me, they will usually show up. Angels and archangels are about 10 to 12 feet tall. They're very tall. And they don't actually have wings. What you're seeing is just the shadow mass of their light, right?
Wow.
So, and oftentimes when people see them with the halo, that's what that truly is that's the soul star, right? The soul star chakra that comes from the stellar gateway where divine source energy radiates from. So it's really more of their aura, their essence, the energy per se. So people will see color sometimes. For me now, I usually hear their voice before I see them show up. A lot of times, if I'm really focused or working on someone, I'll see the shadow come across and then I'll hear the voice. So for everyone, it's different. Some people can see like a color. Some people will just see a figure. or some people will just get images in their head. So it pretty much, it varies on what your biggest clair is and how you receive energetic information.
Cool. I know that Shamuel, for me, Shamuel comes to me in love. Like I'll feel an overwhelming, feeling of love, and this beautiful, like iridescent pink. And I'm like, okay, what's your name? And he'll say Shamuel, and that's great. Metatron for me, he's been wanting to work with me for a little while, but he is like showing me these galaxies and this sacred geometry and that sort of stuff, and I'm like, oh wow. I feel like it's a mobile, like a little baby.
Yeah. So I can tell you that energetically, what I'm picking up from you is that, so what most people don't realize about Metatron. So actually, I'm going to tilt this up a little bit. So you see this little thing right here?
Yeah.
That is Metatron right there.
Okay.
That's a figure of Metatron right there. So Metatron actually holds the cube, right? And in that cube, and this is what most people don't know, is that all of life comes from that cube, right? The flower of life, everything is contained within the cube. So Archangel Metatron is the record holder. So he's over the Akashic records. He's actually the scribe of God, source energy. And so when he actually had me do this whole chakra, I learned so much. Like I thought I knew stuff on chakras. No. There is so much stuff. And so Metatron actually, so we actually have 16 chakras. Okay. And so when we get to the point where we surpass the crown chakra, right? So when we surpass the crown, which is going to be your 7th, then you have the soul star, right? Which is your 8th chakra. Then right in between the 8th and the 9th chakra, okay, is this little sort of like energetic gap. Okay. And so what that is it's the stellar gateway. It's sort of like this golden pillar of light. Okay. That radiates from within that chakra. And within that chakra is where you have access. It's where your bridge point comes in regards to learning everything esoteric. I'm talking like massive amounts of information and wisdom that comes straight from divine source. Okay. And so Metatron is over that, right? So Metatron is over galactic stuff. He's over the stars and the universes. He is also in alignment with the seraphims, right? There is one particular angel that I learned about by the name of Seraphina, which is a seraphim angel, who is the direct source that is linked to God's source energy. So they primarily protect God's source energy. And so you have to be at the right vibrational energy to sort of because when I tell you there's a lot. Like it took me, even me having to dig for this information and get this information to be able to teach it to other people. I literally like told him, I was like, I don't know what I'm teaching these people. You're going to have to help me. And oh boy, did he help me. But Metatron is the record holder, right? So he holds all of the keys and the records to our true divine source, to who we really are and what we're truly capable of. Now you've heard of the Merkaba, right?
Yes.
So we all have our own Merkaba within us. Okay. And a Merkaba is really, when you look at it, it's sort of our chariot. It is our transporter that gets us from point A to point B, right? Which is why we can be in the past, in the present, and in the future all at the same time. When we learn how to activate our own internal Merkaba. Okay. And so Metatron holds the key codes for that. And so when Metatron comes to you and says, okay, I want to work with you, it's because you're ready. You're ready to get those key codes and sort of activate your own Merkaba so that you could then astral travel, astral project, go into several different dimensions. I think sometimes people do this without even realizing that they're doing it. They don't realize that they're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking the other night, and I was, telling her about a situation, and stuff that was going on with a personal situation, and she's like, "What did you pick up on it? Did you touch it?"
So I don't know what you'd call it. I got in that place that I can now slide into real easily. So I have this being that I'm connected to, and I don't know, I just call it, I don't even know what I call it.
The being.
But yeah, the being, the thing. It doesn't care. It really doesn't care what I call it. But it's like, it is me, but not me, it is still me. And and as I explained to her, it thinks in lifetimes, not in minutes.
Yes.
Yes.
So the one interesting thing that the angel showed me was I was having a very hard time understanding past, present, and future. And I was having a really hard time at that time. I was having a really hard time understanding reincarnation, right? Because I came from a very religious type, and then they literally showed me this wheel. And I was like, okay. And then they showed me in the middle of the wheel. And I said, okay. I was like, okay. And then they lit up each one of the spokes of that wheel in a different color, right? And so this is how they showed it to me. So each one of those colors represents chakra, right? We experience life through our chakras. It's just energy being experienced, okay? So each one of those spokes represents you. It is a version of you, okay? Now, you're in the middle. That is your current life, okay? You're in the middle of that wheel, okay? And then around those 12 spokes, there are other 12 versions of you that can be in the past, that can be in the future, that can be in a different dimension, right? So all those 12 different spokes represents a part of you. And those 12 people are also at the center of a wheel. And so how they described this to me, and I didn't understand this at the time, was that is how you can look at time. You're living in the past and in the present and in the future all at the same time. You're just not aware that you are. And sometimes we tap into that, not realizing that we're tapping into that. And so how I then fit it all together was in the part 2 of my chakra workshop, they talk about the oversoul matrix. And I'm like, it took a lot for me to figure it out. So if you really think about it, when you're looking at each one of those, you could potentially be living 144 lives at the same time and not even know it. And that's how it's all interconnected. And that's how we evolve. We evolve based off of the experiences because we are literally light. We only have a fraction of who we are in this vessel. And there's just no way that we could contain, like this vessel isn't made strong enough to contain our true essence. That's why it only contains a fraction of who we are. 2019 was really the year. So interestingly enough, in 2019, I had channeled Metatron, and Metatron had talked about the splitting of the timelines. That was the same thing he kept talking about over and over, the splitting of the timelines. And I was like, what do you mean the splitting of the timelines? And he said, the timelines, he says, they're separating. He says, time is irrelevant. Like time is non-existent. You all just perceive it to be as something that is existent. And he said, and when the timelines split, he says, you're going to have 2 different worlds where people are going to have to energetically decide where they want to be, right? And this is the whole thing of what people talk about when they talk about 3D to 5D, right? But what most people don't realize is that some people think that it's an actual physical place. It's not, it's just a consciousness state. And I didn't really think about it too much because I was just like, I already, they had already set me on this path of where they needed me to be. And so I'm like, I'm at your mercy. Just tell me where I need to go and I'll go. Right. Because that's kind of what my life is like right now. And so, we have right now, right now, we're literally living in a different timeline right now. That's what most people don't realize, is that things that we thought we knew things are completely different, right? Which is why there's so many people that are talking about the Mandela effect, and why there's so many people saying, well, didn't this used to be this way and now look, it's this way. And I mean, it's interesting, but at the same time, when you actually come across a reality. So, and when she mentioned you tapping into something, it brought up something that I had tapped into. So my biggest thing that I help people with right now is relationships, right? Because I've had so many experiences in relationships and different types of relationships. And I just learned about karmic relationships and soulmate karmic relationships that, I didn't, which is, I think is why it's hard for people to understand when you tap into different dimensions or different realities.
Yeah.
And how you can utilize that information. Because for me, I had an experience where in this reality, right, I had a relationship with someone that was very toxic, very negative, but I was so magnetically drawn to this person. I couldn't let this person go. And the lesson for me in this lifetime was, in this timeline, was that I needed to choose myself, because I was the priority here, not that person, right? But in that other timeline that I had tapped into, we were together. And I was like, and I didn't realize that was happening, because I would like in my sleep, I would tap into it. And I'm like, why am I here? I'm trying to get rid of this person. Why am I here? Right. And I wasn't making any sense to me. And that's when I started writing everything down. So if this happens in your dreams, my advice is write all of it down, and then ask your guides or your angels to really help you decipher what it means. Because the thing is that no one can really decipher your dreams other than you, because we have our own symbol key map, right? It means something totally different for us. Now, I can't decipher my dreams, but if someone tells me their dream, I'm like, oh, that's what this means. I can decipher it like that. But if I try to decipher it for myself, it's like, what the hell? Literally.
Well, it feels like it's too easy to put our judgments on ourselves.
It is.
Where, expectations and everything like that. But whereas if you're working with, it's like reading. For me, it's a lot easier to read for somebody I don't know.
Yeah.
You're not involved in that, you don't have your own hopes or whatever on the outcomes. So I think, that's the same with any kind of things that you try to divine or try to understand is it's a lot easier to have that other, I guess, like I said, somebody who's not directly involved.
Yeah. Because there's no attachment to it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no attachment. Yeah. We live in multiple realities at the same time. And so, the future and the past are just conscious states of mind, right? It's just like when you go to someone and someone tells you, you're really living in the past, because the moment that you think about something from the past, you're in the past. You're literally in the past. You're not even in the present. And so that's why that's why a lot of people tell you, you have to remain present, right? It's really about focusing on what's in front of you and really being appreciative and grateful. The hardest thing is relationships. It's relationships is just one of those things that there are just so many multiple dynamics to it. And, I didn't really think that there was anything such as a karmic soulmate. I did not even think about it, but I'm with my wife. We've been together for a long time. And when I met this one person that ended up being a karmic soulmate, I was like my intuition knew the moment I met this person, the literal moment, I kid you not, our eyes locked, and immediately in my head, I was like, damn, this is gonna F me up. Like, I just intuitively knew, I knew this dude is gonna change my life forever. And he did. Not in a very good way, but I will tell you that it helped me learn a lot of things about myself. Now, one thing I will tell you is that when it comes to those kinds of relationships, they come in waves and layers, layer upon layer. Because there was a time when I was a lot like you, Bridget, where I was like, I thought I worked on this. I thought I'd done everything I needed to do. And why am I having to face this all over again? And what I was told was, it's another layer. Go deeper, right? And that's usually what I often call shadow work.
First of all, how can the angels help us with this type of thing? How can they show us, you know, how to move forward?
So the one thing that they've always told me about moving forward is get out of your head, right? Because we as humans tend to overanalyze. We're overcritical. We tend to beat everything till it's dead as a doornail, right? And so one of the biggest things I feel that we as humans struggle with is making a choice, actually making a choice. And it's the reason why, you know, whenever I have a relationship issue, right? Like when I'm dealing with a relationship, I'll call on Archangel Shamuel. If I'm dealing with anything that pertains to health, I call on, you know, Archangel Raphael. If I'm dealing with something that's safety or protection, it's Archangel Michael. If I'm dealing with something, you know, or if you don't even know who the angel is, just say, I need to work with the angel over XYZ, right? And they'll show up, right? But I think the biggest thing, and this is what I hear very often in all of the readings that I've done and all of the people that I've coached, your intention. What is your true intention? And I think that's where people get a little messed up, because they don't even know what their true intention is. And I think that's why people struggle to make a choice. Because a lot of times, you know, when someone will come to me and they'll say, well, I need guidance on XYZ. And I'll say, okay, what are you expecting to get out of it? Like, what is your expectation? What is your true intention? What are you desiring? When you sit down and I'm working with someone and I ask them, what are you really wanting? And they sit there and they look at me and they say, I don't know. Well, we have to start there, because if you don't know what you really want, then the angels really don't know how to help you.
That is a very good point.
Yeah, you have to be really clear about what it is that you want, what your true intention is. So once you got that figured out, then that's when you can call them in and say, I want this. And I always tell people this, you know, like, so I'm working with some very interesting people right now who are struggling with wealth per se, right? Like, so they're struggling with this whole lack mentality. And I always tell people, you know, if once you figure out your intention, really figure out what is the reasoning, what's the why behind it, right? And so I always tell people, you always want to incorporate for my highest good and the highest good of all, because I feel a lot of times when we don't focus on that, we can really go astray very quickly, right? We don't really understand why we're asking for what we're asking or what we're truly intending to get out of it. And once you figure out the why, you'll have a very clear understanding of what you're intending, right? And so what's interesting was the person that I was working with was, you know, the affirmations, you know, I am wealthy, I am rich, all that stuff didn't work. And the reason they didn't work was when I was coaching with this person was because we discovered that the person's emotional perception of the word rich or the word wealthy was they felt so like, ugh, about it, right? I'm like, well, we can't use those words because you're vibrating at ugh instead of vibrating at yes, right? So we have to find words that you totally vibrate with. So when calling in the angels, I want to say my first thing is why? What is your true intention? What are you desiring out of it? And figuring out the why and then asking for that. The other thing is that they tell me all the time is that be open to receiving it in many different ways. Okay. Understanding that everything is an opportunity. Everything, because people get so hung up on, well, I didn't get it in the purple box with the, the blue bow that I wanted. Okay, what did you get it in? I got it in a gold box with a red bow. You got it. It just didn't look like how you want, like, right? So I hear that a lot. People get so hung up on the details that they forget that, when spirit or when angels are actually answering your prayers or they're answering what you're asking for, they have that greater vision that they can see way far off than you can, right? And so you might think that you want it one specific way, but when they're looking at it and they see that's going to lead to XYZ, she doesn't really want that. Right? So they're going to give it to you in your highest good and the highest good for all. So those are going to be my big things when really asking angels specifically for things that you want to work with them on.
Great. Are there any resources that you can recommend for folks that may be interested in working with angelic guides?
Yes, I would actually have to get a list together because there are so many resources. When I first started doing it, Doreen Virtue was very big, but that's not really the resource I would guide people towards now. There is a really great resource out called, I think it's Ask Angels. Now, I believe Melanie from Ask Angels, she's got a ton of information about angels and a ton of resources. I will honestly tell you that I myself am sort of at the point where I just bam, say what it is I want. And then they automatically come in because I'm at that point. But Kyle Gray is another great person from Hay House who has a lot of, angel stuff like angel numbers and books. For me personally, I tend to search and Google a lot of stuff. Like if I want to know something specific, like when I had to actually search for like Archangel Zekiel, because I didn't know who the heck Archangel Zekiel was when he showed up. I had to actually search. I had to Google because I didn't know who he was. And it wasn't until I actually researched that I discovered that he was partnered with Saint Germain, which is over the violet flame and the I am presence. And I was like, oh, so you're now showing up. Okay, great.
Yeah, so Saint Germain's been knocking at my door too.
Yeah. Well, we're at that time, Bridget. We're really at that time now where people are. A lot of those of us that have like coded energy to help raise the vibrational frequency of the earth are needing to sort of answer the call, right? And so I kind of feel like mine was accelerated. I don't really think Metatron gave me a choice. He was just like, bam, go for it. They're being a little gentle with you.
Here, look at this.
But that's good though. I mean, when stuff like that, I kept like a little journal where I wrote down like all the things that I saw so that I could actually like look stuff up to actually search. Yeah.
Well, I think that we have come to the end of our time. Now, how can
Okay.
folks get a hold of you?
So they can actually go to my website, which is www.eileenrouse.com. And all of my social media, my YouTube, everything, they can reach me there. They can email me. That's probably going to be the best place that they can find me.
Okay.
And she is one of our peeps
She
too.
is. She is in the bazaar.
You went too far, man.
It happens. It happens. I do that.
But yeah, so I've no God, how long have I known you? It's
Oh,
been a long time. Over
It's been a
10
long time. Yeah.
It's been, yeah, over 10. Well, heck, I met Eddie like when I was 22, and now I'm gonna be 40 this year, which is just crazy.
Wow.
Yes. So we've known, you and I known each other for like at least 15 years or more.
Yeah. Yeah. We've known each
So-
other a long time.
Right. And I gotta say, all the time I've known you, I mean, obviously you have, your vibration has gone ever since, since when I first met you, I felt like there was, when I first met you, I felt like you were really starting to, still kind of learning and everything like that back then. And, but you always had the best energy.
Oh, thank you.
So, I like the first time I met you, I'm like, oh, this person is just like a pure person, just a really great person. So I think, if anybody out there who's watching this video, if you do need somebody who, a really good healer, most of our peeps are great healers anyway, but I can, from my own experience, from me knowing you, if you, some people need that kind of purity and that kind of that gentle angelic energy that you give off.
Yeah,
It's very
thank you.
healing for people. So definitely recommended. Not that I don't recommend Bridget for her, because she's an awesome person. Well, when she does it,
I am not there yet. That's
when she actually does it, she needs to actually work some more and do more work on it. I'm just saying. But no, she's amazing too. But totally different energies. You guys have totally
Yes.
different energies.
Yeah.
I don't know. Even though I don't really click with angelic work necessarily. Like when you came in, I'm like, damn, I can just feel them,
Yeah.
It's
It's very hot in here. I'm trying to say that right now. I'm like, back up because I'm sweating here.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we have other things planned. I know
Okay.
we're talking about doing maybe some roundtable discussions, and
Yeah,
we
that'd be
had kind of a mini one today. We kind of got into a little bit of that. So and we'll definitely be coming back to teach some more, to share more of that wisdom. And hopefully maybe we can even get Dana in here and see if
Yeah, I talked
jump
to
in.
her. I got to warm her up a little bit, but don't worry.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yes, because hopefully we may reach out to some people, and they may not know anything about it, but it may be their calling, and it's maybe
Yeah.
the only reason they how they know that it's something that
Mhm.
feels right for them.
Yeah.
So anything that like I said, any kind of thing that you can think of as well that we could kind of throw out there. So
Yeah, I've got a lot. I mean, a lot. I mean, oh man,
like that's my life. My life is a lot.
I never really sat down to really think about how much knowledge I have
Mhm.
until I actually started jotting everything down, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm actually working on my own Oracle deck right now.
Awesome.
So it's yeah. So and I also teach people how to read. And so it's kind of, yeah, it's just, I have a lot. So it's just kind of and I tend to, because I talk a lot, because they come in with so much energy and I talk a lot, I kind of need people to be like, okay, focus. So yeah.
Well, thank you again. We'll hopefully we'll put this on YouTube in a few days, and
Okay.
we'll send that over to you as well, and we'll have it posted on our websites. And I think that this is the first of many explorations.
Yeah, beautiful. It was
Having.
great. Thank you all so much for having me. It was great talking with you guys, and I'm going to look forward to some more. This is
Yes.
fun. I love doing this kind of stuff.
Yes, Oh,
too,
yes,
me
definitely.
too,
And like
yeah.
the ahas and like the synchronicities and everything.
Yes, yes,
Definitely. Because sometimes you
yeah,
need that, you know, like you have these
yeah.
experiences and especially, you know, we're often you're in Houston, you know, so you kind of in a larger town, but we're in kind of the boonies here. And, you know, I know there's a bunch of other people who are in areas and they're drawn to this, but like there's no resources around them. So this,
Yeah.
you know, this sometimes is the online is like the only place they're going to find something. So
So do you guys
um,
ever like hold stuff and have people come to you guys and do
we're
like that?
starting to. So
Okay.
today actually, and it was pretty neat. We didn't have a bunch of people, like I said, it's this kind of small town. But we had we call it unicorn coffee and unicorns. And
That's
she started it,
awesome.
yeah, well, she started it a while back and it was online. I'm like, hey, why don't we do a meetup group and actually meet at a coffee place? And then we
Yeah.
can talk about, you know, and get this stuff out and meet other people that, you know, are like, you know, at least kind of like-minded, you know.
Yeah.
And it was I think it's a great,
Yeah.
we had a really good start. It was a really good start.
Good.
Especially for, like I said, tiny town, tiny town.
So what town is it
So
again?
we're in Mineral Wells, which
Mineral Wells.
is, yeah,
Okay.
it's like an hour west of Fort Worth.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
we have a
Okay.
really neat hotel that's supposedly haunted, but you know,
That's not for me. That's for my wife.
right? She might
I
have
know,
fun out here, actually.
yeah.
She asked me the other day, she was like, what do you think if we went like ghost hunting? I'm like, no, that is your deal. That is not my deal. Like, it's just not me. It's just not
Yes,
me.
yeah.
And it's,
But we're talking about doing that up here.
Yeah, they have the haunted house on the hill or whatever. And I'm just
oh,
like, it's not my thing necessarily. I'm okay with it, but we have a friend named Michelle who's really into it, like bringing out the equipment and everything. So,
yeah. Yeah.
you
She
know.
wants a $600 camera. And I'm like, we just spent $1,000 on a light ring. I'm not going to spend $600 on a camera so that you can see a stick figure of a ghost.
Right?
No.
But you don't understand.
Yeah, but that's totally her element. And I'm like, if that's what you want to do, you find someone that will do it with you, because I am not going to. She's like, but I need someone to communicate. I said, no, I only communicate with angels and ascended masters.
Like, not gonna happen.
Because the vibration is so different, right?
Yes.
Yes, it's very, very, very
Yeah.
different. You know, it was interesting because, you know, I had asked Metatron, I said, should I do mediumship? And he said, no, your vibration's too high. And it's true, my vibration is too high. You know, Dana, what she does is she texts people's light measurements. And so I never even knew you could do this. I never even knew that you could test someone's light measurement. And so once
Got to get her on here.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
once she
Yes.
started, you know, when she first started, before my light measurement started going up, I was ranging about 29,000, 28,000. Average people are around 16,000. That's the average light measurement of a person, average. When they usually meditate on a regular basis, they're usually like in the 26, 28,000. Well, now my light measurement, my average is 2.5 million. And so my light measurement has to be at that high frequency in order to be a vessel, a channel for them and stuff. And that happened like in 2019, man, all those downloads, I was meditating regularly. And now it's like, I used to, when I would channel, I would get so dizzy. I would get so dizzy. I don't anymore because I've acclimated. And, you know, just recently, I want to say maybe like in February of this year, I had the Council of Light come through and my light measurement like shot up. And that was at that same time, my Kundalini rising had sort of activated.
Oh,
and I was like, I was going through so much like up and down, up and down, up and down, that I was just like, okay, we need to like stabilize some stuff. Why I haven't done a channeling in a while, because I needed my stuff to sort of level out. But I will definitely let you all know, because when I do channelings, I open it up for people to partake in it
Mhm.
so that they could ask questions if they want. So I will definitely let you guys know. We'll see who comes through. Sometimes it's the angels of love and sometimes it's Metatron. But lately, when I've been meditating, the Council of Light's been sort of like coming in. And I'm like, and that sort of freaked me out because I was like, because they talked a lot about like transmissions and Dana got so excited. She's like, that's like the Galactic Federation. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, that is not my thing.
But I've heard about them. I've heard about them.
Yeah, but the Council of Light is it's like it's multiple, and the voice was different. It was very different. It was very different from what I've normally done, and I was just like, okay, so I'm just here.
Just whatever, guys. Just somebody could pick it out.
So I'll definitely let you guys know.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm gonna have to go to
You're so
like, the
welcome.
ladies' room.
Yeah.
All right,
And
thank you
I
so
will talk
much.
to you later.
Okay.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.